Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Michigan Athena. We are so glad that you're here to join us for today's session. We are going to have a heart to heart about speaking up with courage and owning your voice in every room. Let me tell you, I was just backstage with our panelists, and I cannot express to you the talent, the experience, and the wisdom that will come out of today's session. So, everyone at some point or another has had an experience of wanting to contribute to an important conversation only to find themselves something holding them back. Perhaps it's the organizational hierarchy or maybe imposter syndrome. Whatever the cause, sometimes we do tend to hesitate on contributing. And sometimes that makes for a loss of impact in our thoughts, ideas, ideation, and great questions. So, today we're going to explore how to speak with confidence, clarity, and courage, even in rooms that may challenge us. The session is designed to help you reflect on your own experiences, identify moments where your voice matters most, and build the tools to use with intention. Whether you're here to grow with confidence, to strengthen your own leadership, or simply to reconnect on some self of sense and your leadership style, you are in the right place. Also, be sure to stay through the webinar to win a prize. We do a prize drawing on all of our webinars, and the winner will be announced in the post-event recap email that you'll all see. So with that said, we want to encourage you to use the chat box, express if something is really resonating with you that the panel is sharing today. Please put your questions in the chat box as well. We'll have a dedicated time near the end for questions, but we would love for you just to pop them in there as you're thinking about it. For those who are sponsors with the Michigan Athena program, we want to take a moment and say thank you, thank you, thank you for our diamond sponsor. I'm sorry, for our diamond sponsor, Consumers Energy. We appreciate your leadership in Michigan Athena this year. To our diamond sponsor, Teresa Dubiel, and to all of our other great sponsors from Hastings to Amerisher to Waste Management. We are so grateful for your year-long response to Michigan Athena. And with that said, I would like to introduce one of our presenting sponsors, Teresa Dubiel. Teresa is with Lake Trust Credit Union and has continued to be not just a financial contributor to Athena, but a wonderful champion of the brand and what it means to be Michigan Athena. With that, Teresa.
Thank you, Amanda. Lake Trust Credit Union is proud to be the presenting sponsor for this series that empower women and provide great topics for us to explore and grow. Throughout this series, the content, the presenters, and the panelists have shared inspirational nuggets that apply both in our career and in our personal lives. We are proud of our partnership with Michigan Athena and the Michigan Chamber and the ongoing impact that we can make together. Thank you, Amanda.
Thanks so much, Teresa. Always great to see you and have you be part of Michigan Athena. We are thrilled to be joined today by our moderator, Megan Saman, and she is the president and CEO of the Bay Area Chamber of Commerce, a wonderful friend and colleague in the chamber world. And she is also the president and CEO of Bay Future Incorporated. Megan is a dynamic regional leader whose work centers on strengthening communities, evaluating local businesses, and championing economic growth across the Great Lakes Bay region. Her commitment to collaboration, innovation, and empowering others makes her the perfect guide for today's conversation. I want to express gratitude to the incredible panel that will be joining Megan today as well. Andrea Bitely, Deb Muchfor, and Tina Kozak. Each of them bring a unique perspective on courage and communication, and we are so fortunate to have each of them as our panel today. Thank you for being here. Remember to use the chat box to engage with us throughout today's webinar. And thank you for being part of the Michigan Athena community. With that, let's get started. Megan?
Thank you, Amanda, and good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's Michigan Chamber Athena webinar. My name is Megan Saman, and I have the privilege of serving as the President and CEO of the Bay Area Chamber of Commerce and the Interim Executive Director of Bay Future. I'm also honored to serve as your moderator today. The Athena has been a long celebrated list of women and individuals who lead with inspiration, excellence, and inspire people to achieve their full potential. They also make meaningful differences in our communities, and those are the values that we know are so incredibly important as we look at how we strengthen our communities. Today, we are going to be celebrating some amazing individuals and learning from them and having some great dialogue. And so, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the conversations. Today, I'm very excited that we're going to be talking with some amazing women and panelists. We have Andrea Bitely, founder and principal of Bitely Communications, Deb Muchmore, president and founder of Deb Muchmore Consulting, and Tina Kozak, chairman and CEO of Franco. I'm so excited to have you dynamic women joining me today. We have a lot of great questions. I can't wait to hear what you're talking about. And then later on, we're going to hear some from questions from our audience. So please, as we get this going, I want to make sure our panelists know that we have a lot of amazing individuals watching from all across the state. And if you want to share your thoughts or your feedback in our chat, I will be popping some of those questions in as we have the dialogue today. So please don't hesitate to, in real time, share your questions with the panelists, and we'll pop those in as we can. So, with that, let's jump into it. Andrea, do you want to start off by giving us some information on when you were in your career? Your voice. It may not have started on how it is today. What has helped you find your voice in a moment that you felt uncomfortable? And maybe how has that evolved as you've grown in your career?
With age comes wisdom. And as I've gotten older, I've really come into my own voice. And honestly, we're getting some notes about the panel not being visible, possibly. And so if you can hear us, we're going to keep going. But as I've aged and as I've come into my own skin, I've really learned what my voice is and what I'm willing to do with my business. I am proud to be able to pick and choose who my clients are and who I will work with. I see Tina and Deb agreeing there. I mean, I don't want to swear in the first 2 minutes of the event, but I do have a no a-holes clause in contracts. If you're not nice to me, I'm not nice to you, and I won't work with you. So that is something where I've really found my own voice, and I have the privilege of being able to be at that point in my career where I can make those choices.
And that's great. Deb, have you found that your voice has grown or shifted throughout your career? And have you found yourself getting more comfortable in finding your voice?
Absolutely. And I'm probably the eldest member on the panel. So I would echo Andrea's comments in terms of with age comes wisdom, but also with age comes confidence. And that makes a lot of difference. But the other piece that I think really adds to one's ability to contribute and raise your voice is experience and exposure to all kinds of people, all kinds of situations, and learning the skills and the techniques and your own manner in terms of how you communicate and hear other people. But it's definitely something that comes with age. I will say, though, I was extremely fortunate at the beginning of my career, right out of college, to go to work on a sales team. I sold radio advertising as my first job. And I will frequently say to young people, again, people graduating, who often don't want to take sales jobs, if you can get a sales job early in your career or any time in your career, it is one of the most effective jobs at really honing your ability to communicate and learn things about other people. And my sales manager and the station owner, Charlie McElravy, who's from Lansing and a very successful business person, was incredibly generous and gracious in that he put our entire sales team through the Dale Carnegie program. And that is another just terrific training ground for helping people learn to communicate, learn to listen, learn to communicate effectively and with your own voice.
That's a great comment about the tools and the training. Tina, have you ever utilized any tools or training that has helped you develop some of those skills on speaking up and finding your voice?
Yeah, I have. In fact, I do now a lot of training. I'll work with a lot of, especially women, to help them, kind of find that confidence and find that voice and presence. And one thing that I always go back to is knowing what your values are and making sure that you're so certain in who you are, I think is a real key to speaking with confidence. And it doesn't mean that you know everything. It's just that you're grounded in who you are. So I agree with age comes wisdom. And I think that's with knowing yourself better and better comes that conviction that like this is who I am, the ground under me, my values is so rock solid that I know that I'm speaking from a place of like deep belief. So I think that really staying committed to what you believe in, even when maybe you're a little uncertain or the consequences are uncertain, is a really important part of finding that voice.
And Tina, let's take that a step further. What internal or external barriers have you had to overcome to confidently use your voice in these professional spaces?
For me, it was always, until now, it seems like it was always like being the youngest in the room was always a big barrier. And then all of a sudden look around and I'm absolutely no longer ever the youngest. But it was tough. I grew up in automotive, and so I was often one of just a few, maybe women in the room. And then being very young, I was always underestimated. Always felt like that proverbial pat on the head was kind of coming my way, and I hated that. It made me so frustrated. It made me so uncomfortable. But I would remember when I got frustrated or maybe lacked that confidence that I'm here for a reason. Somebody with more experience than me put me in this role. I was not, my own employer at the time. I was working, for others. And it's like someone thinks that I can do this. Like I belong here. I'm supposed to be here. So even when I was underestimated, overlooked because I was young, I was a woman, I dealt with a lot of cultural differences, which was a great learning for me. But, going over to Europe, going over to Asia, helping set up for big customer events and employee events, and plant managers just not wanting to give me the time of day, I would just remind myself, like, I'm here for a reason. I belong here. I'm a contributor. So that was really helpful in overcoming some of those obstacles.
Oh, I appreciate you sharing that. When we talk about what is needed and what strategies we use or rely on when we need to speak up with courage in high pressure situations, Andrea, can you touch on some strategies that you rely on during those tough times?
To echo a little bit of what Tina just said, you're there for a reason. I do a lot of both local, state, and national interviews about politics. I'm a talking head and I am there for a reason. Roop Raj at Fox 2 has me on every week or so because what I say matters and I understand politics in a way that other folks don't. So I am doing my job because others have seen the strength I have. And I want to go back a little bit to what Tina was talking about earlier. One thing that I've been lucky in my career is to find and work with men in power who have really strong faith in me. I worked for Attorney General Bill Schuette, and a reporter who will go unnamed once started calling me Miss Andrea. And the former Attorney General, maybe not known as a feminist, but he really stood up for me and he told that reporter, you can call her Andrea or you can call her Ms. Bitely, but you will not call her Miss Andrea. And having men who are in your corner. He was raised by a widowed mom and a bunch of sisters, so he appreciates women a lot more than maybe some people give him credit for. But finding the good men who you know will be on your side and who respect you is also a really important factor. And being a woman in a high pressure job that is male dominated.
Very well said. And I do want to give some thank you to you because former Attorney General is from our region here in the Great Lakes Bay region, and
Yes.
his son is a fantastic leader in our community. So, yes, absolutely. And when we talk about finding other champions, to your point about Athena, it's not just women needing to stand up for women, it is men. And when we think about the men, you were raised by a woman, your mother's,
Yep.
you have sisters potentially. You're going to potentially have a child or a wife. And we have to be thinking of how would you want your daughter, your wife, your cousin, somebody in your family treated in that manner. And I love the fact that you had a man step up for you. So thank you for sharing that. Deb, when we talk about dismissive ideas, how do you respond when your ideas are dismissed, minimized, or challenged in a room? That can be pretty intense. And can you talk us through some of that?
Absolutely. And my background, I think probably a lot of people know my background is not too unlike Andrea's or too unlike Tina's. We share a lot of things in common in terms of what we do with and for clients and around the public relations and public affairs sphere. So without echoing everything that's being said, I want to put a fine point on a few things that have been said. Um, know that you're there for a reason. I read somewhere just recently, written by one of my mentors and coaches over the years, a fellow by the name of Jim Lukashevsky, who's known as the crisis guru nationally for corporations. And a lot of my work over many decades now has been in that sphere. And I work predominantly for corporate clients and often in controversial space. Um, but you are there for a reason. You've been hired and chosen to be part of a team because you bring value, because you have something unique to add and contribute to whatever is going on in the company or the organization that you are working with. And so, I would just sort of echo not just that you have value, but what you have to say is valuable and has value often, and I don't remember, Tina, you might have said this, your role at the table is not necessarily to always be right. In fact, you don't have to be right most of the time. You have to contribute things of value that add to the discussion and add to the perceptions and perspectives that the entire team or whoever it is that you are working for, a CEO, an executive, a management level, your job is to add perspective to how decisions are made and made wisely, prudently, and strategically. So I'll just, kind of put that fine point there because I think that's something that I've learned over many years. And it goes back to that confidence piece in that I think early in my career, I would be reluctant to step into the conversation because I didn't know if I was right and I might say something that was totally wrong or off base. I still have those little, fleas sitting on me from time to time in a room going, what if you're not right? What if all those things come into play? But I will remind myself that after all these years of doing this, and saying that does not mean if you are young in your career, you have to wait until 40 years into your career because again, you're there for a reason. Somebody, whether your team or your manager or whomever, has recognized that you've got a unique way, a unique set of thinking, a unique background that is really important to what the team is doing. Your job is to contribute that. But techniques that that you use I think, are fundamentally simple. Take a breath, right? Take a breath. Um, Organize your thoughts to the best of your ability. raise your hand and step in and just let things unfold, but also know when to stop.
Yeah.
Hmm. Great advice. And as we continue on with that advice, Tina, what advice would you share with somebody who's looking at trying to build confidence, but maybe doesn't know where to start?
Well, I hate to be a broken record here on this one, but I think it does start with knowing yourself, really knowing yourself. You can't be confident until you really know who you are. So again, kind of getting clear on what are your values, what matters most, um, what are you willing to defend? And I think that clarity often becomes the foundation. Um, Starting by surrounding yourself with people who let you be your truest self. And I do not mean people that agree with you all of the time. I think, people who challenge your ideas is a really healthy part of a culture. So finding a culture, a team, even a community like this one, like Athena, where you can be seen and supported, and that really helps. Confidence doesn't just like appear from nowhere. You really cultivate it in the right conditions, and those conditions are when you have those people around you, have a community around you that support you. And then I think take the swing. Like I tell people all the time, especially on my teams, if you wait until you're ready, you're never going to be ready. A lot of, and I equate this to motherhood. It's not for everyone, but it's like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be ready. You're never going to be ready. You're never going to think like, I'm ready to do this next thing. So, lean in and do it. You learn by going through it, and the confidence comes. It's like the lessons are in the experience, and you've done it now, you've kind of got one under your belt, and you'll become more confident as you go. So I think that really the taking the swing, but you've got to be surrounded by that environment that is going to support you. So those are a couple key ingredients.
I like
Just
that.
act, just
And
act.
And
Yes.
I'm gonna jump right into the chat and I'm gonna put this to Andrea. We have Juliana who says if you're in a situation where your self-esteem is lacking, what do you do? How do you prepare? And we hear this a lot, a lot of
Yeah.
people say when your self-esteem, is lacking. We hear that as when people don't feel like they belong and what do they call that? Fake it till you make it, and they have that feeling of
Imposter syndrome.
imposter
Yes,
syndrome.
yes.
Can you walk us through a little bit of, how do you get through that?
So I am a chronic over preparer. If if I'm going to pitch a client or sit down with somebody deeply in crisis, I will have spent hours and hours, probably of non-billable time, which Deb and Tina are, that billable time is where your money comes from. But I will spend all the time in the world getting ready for that meeting because if I blow that first meeting, I'm done. I'm not getting the contract. I've lost the confidence of the leadership team that's hiring me. But I'm a fake it till you make it kind of gal sometimes. Because I work in politics and in crisis communications, you don't always know what the question is going to be. If you're in a situation where you're representing an elected official and you're in a media scrum, so you've got cameras and microphones and all sorts of stuff all around you. Um, Sometimes you just have to take the "I will get back with you" statement as reality, and you have to get back with people because that is part of building the
And
confidence.
I want to pause on that because
Yeah.
you said something that really jumped out to me.
hmm
It is okay not to deliver an answer.
Yes.
Can we women, all of you talk to that? Anybody jump in here? It is okay not to feel you need to speak and give an answer in real time. Deb, I see you shaking your head. Can you say more on that, what Andrea was jumping in on? Because that is epic, Andrea.
Yeah, it's as true as Andrea's saying for, media relations and, the three of us spend a lot of our time preparing people for media interviews and, preparing messaging and teaching them the techniques for bridging to an answer. Um, that's obviously a tool of the trade, and it can be a tool of anybody at any table. Um, but I think the other piece is sort of natural language that we all use. But in the moment of pressure, it sometimes doesn't come to us. And that's just simply, you know, I need to think a little bit more about that. Or can you tell me a little bit more about what may be on your mind, before I take a swing at that answer? Here's my, and then, here's my perspective, or here's some other things to think about, but I'd like to come back to you with, a more substantive answer. And that's my way of, of segueing to, because we're all traditionally in rooms with a boss or our colleagues and peers. And it's back to the point that Tina made. You don't, your job is not always to be right and have all of the answers. Your job is to help foster, so should all of your colleagues and your bosses. It should be to foster the kind of discussion and environment that leads to good solutions and good answers. So common plain language, and poking a little bit whoever's asking you the question of what's on your mind there? What would be important? What are we to, what's the place we're trying to get to that would help me respond to you in the most productive ways?
I
So
love
give yourself some breathing.
I
I
love
would
that.
add to Megan,
Absolutely.
I know we're all in like crisis comm, so we could all talk about crisis for like probably a whole day, and I would love to one day. But I think this applies in any role, and it goes to the not always having the answer. Like curiosity is a superpower. And
Tell
I
us
am,
more on that. Go deeper.
yeah, I'm a naturally curious person. And it you can't expect to have an answer if you don't fully understand a situation. So, asking someone like, can you tell me more? Let's look at it from this perspective. What would your opposition say? Or, let me understand this. And this, again, can apply in various industries and various types of meetings and conversations. And I frame it too as a lot of times like, I'm really curious to understand. And I think that builds in the like I'm trying to get to know you better. So there's trust
It
that
takes down the defensive sometimes when
yes,
you're having that difficult conversation, right? By
yes,
leading with question.
yes,
Yeah,
yes. So yeah, use that. Curious.
I really like that.
And your
Um,
job is to learn stuff, right? I mean, again, not the you've got to be right, but also the more you learn and learn from other people, your level of empathy grows, and your that experience and exposure grows. And so you become more confident, and you become clearer in how you communicate, because you're absorbing all of the curiosity, and you're giving credit to the perspectives and experiences and positions of other people. You might not always agree, and people aren't always going to agree with you. This gets back to your question about how do you answer when you've presented something and you kind of get shut down.
mhm.
Um, there are lots of perspectives on any given topic. My one of my goals as I've gone, especially in later years with my clients, is to encourage them not to reject where everybody else is coming from, right? To try to understand where that is coming from, because that's where the solutions are. So that curiosity, Tina, thing, I think is, some might say to be a lifelong learner,
Yeah.
but absorb what their experience is. You'll appreciate them a lot more, and in turn, they'll appreciate you a lot more.
And when we talk about lifelong learning, for me, I always take that into that mentorship role. And I know, even as a president and CEO, I surround myself with not just one, not just two. I have many mentors with many different, and I have a mentor for different things. Andrea, let's talk about mentorship as far as when it comes to, finding your voice. What does a role of a mentor or a coach or an executive leader, how can they help in those areas or in, again, different areas along this entire spectrum?
Sure. So one of my points of pride is that I've been able to work with a lot of young women in PR, but also in journalism, and working with them to find their voice and to find confidence is not an easy task. You have to kind of earn your confidence in some way. You have to be able to let some of, the aggression roll off your back a little bit. You have to learn, again, we've kind of all repeated is you belong in the room. And reminding folks that you belong in that room is really important. I too have mentors for different aspects of my life. And each person, it's a combination of men and women, and each person is somebody who I feel like I can be very honest with. So finding a mentor who will allow you to be honest with them, who you can have really frank conversations with, who will tell you when you're doing the right thing and tell you when you are wrong, is a very important person to have in your corner.
I really like that. Surround yourself with people who can tell you when you are wrong. That is a strength that most people don't realize on how, when somebody's giving you constructive criticism or feedback, that is a gift. And I believe that whether it's, us pouring into our staffs or whatever, or when we get feedback, I agree. Uh, I want to continue on this mentorship. Do either Tina or Deb, do either of you have either mentors that you utilize? Are you an unofficial mentor to a mentee somewhere that you've been working on that you want to share?
I agree with what Andrea said. I have not had kind of one singular formal mentor relationship, but more a constellation of people who I admire, I borrow from, I listen to. The person who gave me my first internship and kind of helped open the door to the auto industry, I followed along and continued to admire. Another leader I had really taught me about like character in a situation, and I would look to her for not just the how she did things, but just kind of how she conducted herself. Um, my I also am a big believer in sort of interdependency. So I know I have a skill set and strengths, but there are a lot of things that I don't do well or that I lack. And rather than always finding ways, I mean, I certainly am always trying to work on things and improve things, but I try to fill my gaps with people around me on my team. And you have to be willing to know what those are and to see them in someone else and say, like, we'd make great partners here on this. So my one of my business partners in the business, Tina Sullivan, really is like the gritty persistence in action person. And like when I need that, I draw on her for that. So we talk a lot about just interdependency. So if you have the opportunity to kind of create your teams too, and it doesn't have to be again someone who's more experienced than you. It can be a peer, but that kind of fills a gap that you don't have. If you're really struggling with, maybe the emotional intelligence, if you've got the technical, work down, but I really admire how you work with people or how, kind of you understand. So finding those like ways to fill your gaps is really important. And I think not waiting for like the one perfect mentor and then pay it forward, like be that for someone else.
Yes.
Um, I try to tell, especially young women, but anyone who works with me, for me, when I'm doing things like this, like, you know, all the things I wish I knew. And even when someone comes in to Franco now, I'll often tell them, like, I might not tell you this all the time, right? Like, you're working for me. I can't tell you to like negotiate with me, but I want you to know, like, these are things that are okay. And just really encourage them to be an advocate for themselves, like, throughout their career. So, kind of those ground rules and things that I wish someone had told me, I try to say those things.
You're absolutely right. I will say the one thing that I know when I'm either mentoring a lot of our young professionals, one thing that I do make sure to talk about is kind of that taboo topic that nobody says, especially as women, we should talk about, and that's money, right? So I know when I'm doing some coaching with young professionals, we talk about being comfortable with the uncomfortable. Things like it's okay to ask for more money and share why you believe you're worth it, right? It's important to be able to build that value proposition in that case because nobody is going to be building that for you. And we have to use our voice and, the answer is always no if you don't ask. And so it's really important. And I think when we talk about coaching and mentoring, excuse me, we need to be talking about coaching and mentoring those things that, especially as women, we talk about that pay gap that is there. Sometimes it's because we don't ask, we don't use our voice. We don't feel comfortable having that dialogue. And so I would be remiss if I didn't share on this call to make sure that all women knew that they should especially speak up when it's talking about their own worth and their own value and creating their goals. So,
If I could jump in on that, when
yes,
I started my firm, one of the decisions you have to make is what is your hourly rate? How much is my brain worth for 1 hour of time? And I had a conversation with a few women solo practitioners, and I walked away from some of them thinking they're undervaluing themselves. And then I talked with a few male solar practitioners, and I was thinking they're overvaluing themselves. So I found myself saying, well, if a man with maybe equal experience is charging X amount, I have to charge that amount. And I went back and told a couple of the women I talked with, you are not charging enough. So that is something that we as women need to remember. There's a stat, and I'm gonna mess it up, but something about how a woman will only apply for a job if she meets 100% of the requirements, but a man will apply if he matches, 5% or something crazy. Just apply for the job. What's the worst that can happen? They tell you no. Like, go for it. Go for it.
I love that. I love that. And as we talk about, how we're doing this, what can leaders do to make sure that we're providing the opportunity for staff to speak up or others' opinion and to share that? How are we inviting people to the table to have communication? Anyone, free for all.
I was
Well,
trying
I
to
would,
unmute myself. Oh, go on, Deb. Go on.
oh, um, you know, as leaders, it's a responsibility we have. It's not just that how do we do it, but it's a recognition that if you are a leader, male or female, at whatever level of the organization you're at, eh, as a leader, you've got a responsibility to the people around you, to be aware of their circumstances in the same way that you're aware of your own. This is particularly as it relates to pay. Um, it- it- and especially if we're talking to women about their wages and the benefits and all that, you know, we all recognize just how expensive it is to live, let alone how to drive livelihood that enables ourselves, our families to aspire and to achieve things well beyond what we might have imagined. So, I would just say, as leaders at any level, be attuned and ask people that work with and for you, what do you need? How,
Yeah.
what do we do to help you? And obviously that has a great cultural significance in how we retain the best people, how we build terrific teams around us, how we advance an organization towards success. It's it's not just pay, but it's the culture of value and pay.
I agree with that. I'm going to jump to a question. I'm going to jump to a few things in the chat if we could. There's been some great commentary. Samara, a great mentor, doesn't just show you how to navigate the room, they remind you that you belong into it. She used a Maya Angelou quote, who I love. In order to be a mentor and an effective one must care, lifting others while we climb. That is so true. We need to lift each other. But I'm going to go to the question that I loved over here from Kate. Thank you for putting it in. Attendees, what is the best piece of an advice a mentor gave you? That's an excellent question. So, Andrea,
Yes. The late Kelly Rossman, who I think many folks on the call will recognize her name, once told me to suck it up and put my big girl panties on. And anybody who knows Kelly, that's like a direct quote. And that was something that's something I think about on a pretty regular basis. If I'm having a rough day or I'm just grouchy for some reason, it's like, okay, what would Kelly do? And the answer is suck it up and put your big girl panties on and go and do your job. So sometimes it's hard and sometimes it sucks, but
I
put your
love
big girl
that.
panties on.
All
Yeah.
right, Tina, what's yours?
I love that we brought Kelly into this conversation. That was really great. When I was very young in my career, and I used to get really frustrated when someone didn't do what I expected them to. A mentor of mine told me, and it seemed so simple, but I was so young that it really hit me. Like, not everyone is you. Like, not everyone behaves the way that you would behave in that situation. So, because you would call someone back on this day, or because you would, close the lid, or whatever it is, and that helped. I think that helped in putting things into the perspective too. Again, when you're very young and you're working on something and it is so important to you, and but it might just be like a little sliver in someone else's pie that day. And so just kind of like taking a breath, putting things into perspective, just kind of again like the perspective of like your place in the world and what someone else maybe has going on, I think was really helpful for me.
Great. Thank you, Tina. Deb, what was one of your favorite pieces of advice that you've ever been given?
Well, and it's one that I remind myself of frequently, probably almost daily, because a lot of the teams that I work with are comprised of younger people and younger professionals. And the piece of advice is trust them. Trust trust them to make good decisions, to move things forward. It may not be your way, kind of back to the point that you were just making, but trust people in every way. And then the other one, these are two pieces that I give to people, and this one goes with what I was just saying, and that is there is absolutely positively nothing you can do that we can't fix. There's not a conversation or a mistake that you make that we can't and won't fix together. But fundamentally, just trust people. And then the other piece of advice that I give clients frequently to help us get to the right answer is it's not always about you. Right? I mean, we all have this tendency to think that the discussions and whatever's going on is all about us.
No, you're good.
Generally is not. It generally is not.
You're so right. I know we're going to be nearing the time where we're going to take some Q&A from the audience. So I'm going to kind of quickly do some round rapids to try to get some quick bits and pieces over through this. So um, I'm going to say, we just talked about advice that we got from other people. Let's do a round robin and say, what's one piece of advice that you would give to people listening today or emerging women who want to know how to own their voice more fully? All right, Andrea, in 30 seconds or less.
Just do it. Just make the comment, just say it. And if it's wrong, someone will tell you. And if it's right, everyone will get on board. But if you don't take that risk, if you don't make that jump, it'll never happen. So talk to the client, talk to the leader, do it. Just do it.
All right, Tina.
I, yeah, I think just know yourself and know your values and let that lead.
Deb.
I'll go in a little bit of a different direction. Um, Take some training. Hire a coach. You got three sitting on the sitting on the call right now. Do this for a business. Hire somebody to work with you. Sometimes it's just a matter of having somebody to record you and practice back over and over again. And that doesn't have to be super formal or official, but it does help you hear how you are communicating and the things that you want to refine a little bit. But I will never ever regret my Dale Carnegie training way back at the beginning of my career, and I've bounced back in and out of courses over time. Some of these tools and programs that are offered, all over the place are really worth their weight in gold. And so take some courses.
So, Deb, I'm going to touch a little bit more on that because I think what you said is really important. A meeting prior to this that I just had was actually with my financial planner and my husband because we hire financial planners, right? We have a CPA who does taxes. We have all these professionals that we bring into our lives to be able to do these very specific things. Coaching and training is something that we should be investing in ourselves. The importance of investing in ourselves really can change the trajectory of our career, our earning potential, the
Yeah.
people that we meet. Can you guys talk about maybe either some success stories or how you've seen um, the importance of coaching into the growth of women?
Could talk about this all day. I think investing in yourself is so key. And at different stages of your life, that might look different. Someone told me, I remember like when I was really young, I had a young family, and they're like, it seems like a lot now, but pay the person to be there, even when you're home, like to get just and I tell people that now. So wherever you're at in your life, if it's, I can't do the laundry, I need to farm this out because again, my time is worth and or I need some quiet. I just need in not feeling bad about it. I just need some quiet. I need to kind of like ground myself. Today, for me, that looks like coaching. I have a coach who I've worked with for probably about 10 years. He is not someone who, when I walked into the room, I made an absolute, unfair judgment. I looked at this guy at the time, he was, he just turned 80. So he was probably in his late 60s at the time, maybe 70. And I'm like, who in the world thought this was going to be a match made in heaven, right? Like, what is this old guy? And I mean, I can, this is such a humbling admission. He because he's had a different experience than me, but is so open. Andrea, like you said, about in men in our lives and careers, um, has been just so influential in helping me understand myself better. So today, when the business is doing well and I look at like, what do I want? How am I gonna like reward myself? I do it almost exclusively in the form of more coaching. Like the more I invest in that, I view that as an absolute gift and reward to myself. It's hard work to work on ourselves. I'd much rather tell someone else what to do with their business and with their life. So it's the hardest work that I do, probably the most humbling, the most vulnerable, but absolutely the most rewarding.
I agree. Investing in ourselves, I just saw it in the comments, pays the best dividends. I wholeheartedly agree. I've been very fortunate. The training that I've had through the Michigan Chamber of Commerce, the Michigan Association of Chamber Professionals, our state association, I've been very grateful in my industry to be able to have access to resources. And more importantly, one of the resources that was commented on in the chat was the fact of these Athena panels, that this is development and investment into so many because of people like you three sharing your wisdom, your background, your success. And sometimes it's not always success, right? It's the bumps that get you there. And I hear you guys saying like showing up matters. And I heard some really great things, suck it up, put your big girl panties on. That's kind of where my showing up matters, right? What if somebody could only, or if attendees would remember one thing from today's conversation, what do you think is really important for that to be? Deb, let's kick it off with you.
Invest in yourself. Just just invest. I mean, Megan, you rattled off a Michigan Chamber and a number of others. Remember all of the things that you belong to. are offered these programs and offered abilities to improve your place in your professional career, use them.
Wonderful. Tina.
Oh boy. I think it is yeah, it's just like showing up, just showing up. Just, kind of like keeping after it.
Andrea.
Developing a circle, developing
Developing
a
a
mentor-mentee circle where I might bring something to my mentee and she might bring something back to me that day. Sometimes it's just how to speak Gen Z. Other times it's a really good, important, hey, I saw you said this thing. What did you mean? And making sure that I'm speaking clearly. So make your circle and make it whole.
I love that. I love that. When we talk about finding our voice, the one thing that we didn't touch on, and I do want to, as long as Amanda says it's okay, um, we didn't talk about difficult conversations, right? So difficult conversations, whether it's being us to our team members, whether it be us to things happening in the community, a project, a partner, difficult communications. I call them crucial conversations and crucial accountability. I've been trained on the importance of having that uncomfortable dialogue. Can you two, or can you give two quick tips, each of you, if you could, because this is a crucial accountability and communication strategies are important. But if you could each give two tips on how have you utilized crucial conversations, and maybe a couple tips or a tip to make it, I don't want to say easy because it's not, these conversations are not easy, but they're required. They need to happen. So can we talk about quickly on some of those more difficult, because I know each of you have some great expertise on different communication styles. Deb, I know you have in disc training and a lot. Tina, you have some crisis communication. Andrew, with what you do in politics, you're dealing with it on a daily basis. Each of you have such strong expertise on this, and I would be remiss if I didn't get you guys to talk about some of those difficult things that need to happen.
I'm happy to jump in first here. And my advice is rip the band-aid, just do the thing. It's hard, but it's only going to get harder if you dwell on it and you lose sleep over it and be honest. Um, do it quickly and do it honestly, whether it's terminating an employee, whether it's terminating a relationship with a client, whether it is delivering hard news to someone. If you do it in a fashion that is done appropriately and timely, and you don't fudge the truth, it's a lot better.
Yeah,
Those are
don't dance
don't
around it.
dance
Go
around
right
it.
to it.
Go just say it.
But be respectful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Two things come to mind, and I saw back in the chat, I know Allison had asked a question about like experiencing anxiety in high pressure conversations. So one thing I wanted to say to that, and I've done a lot of coaching, a lot of work with women in presence over the years, and this sounds so trite, but I'm a big fan of like the power pose ahead of a meeting and a whole kind of grounding habit, I guess. And I think this is really important getting into, you're going into a tough conversation or, a high stakes, high pressure situation. Just that grounding yourself, and sometimes it is asking, what does this situation, like, what do I need to bring? What's the thing I need to bring? Sometimes I need to bring my calm to a situation. Other times I need to bring my urgency. And, knowing what's right, sometimes I need to bring like my listening more so than my counsel. Um, but I like standing in the mirror, like, whether it's like, you belong here, you're going to go into this room. It's going to be all these, blue suit, kind of older, like, guys who maybe think they know more, but they asked you to this room for a reason, like you belong. So a little bit of that practice, a little bit of that preparation. I found that like in my mid career, like maybe early to mid, that really helped me. I think now I've just created the habit that I don't do it as intentionally anymore, but Amy Cuddy, who does a lot of talking on like power, presence. She's got a great book and has a great TED Talk on presence and power posing and like preparing for these tough situations. The other thing goes back to like who you are. I was in the middle of a very high stakes negotiation. We were working with attorneys. I was getting nasty. Like I was kind of outside myself. I almost didn't recognize myself. And I almost walked away from everything, which would have been very disruptive for my career entirely. And I remember like being so disappointed, so frustrated, let down, and then was like, I'm a I'm a heart like communicator. I'm a speak from the heart. Let's have an honest conversation. Why am I talking through these attorneys? I just need to pick up the phone and like speak from my heart. And that was what absolutely unjammed the log. It wasn't like more attorneys, more strategies. It was like what I bring. And so sometimes it's like going back to who you are, what do you bring, what do you need?
I love that. We're about to turn it back over to Amanda. I want to, first of all, say a genuine thank you to each of you three incredible women who have successful businesses, who are doing game-changing things, who are changing the dynamics in the shift and truly are embodying what it means to be Athena. And so thank you for being here, for sharing your wisdom, for sharing your thoughts and ideas on how women can speak more effectively and really own ourselves in a room. But I do want to ask one question that came up in the Q&A in 10 seconds or less. If imposter syndrome is creeping in, what is a quick tip that you can do to reset your mind?
Put red lipstick on
And mascara.
and
But
mascara.
but just imposter syndrome is part of all of us, I think. I don't think there's I mean, I'm guessing that, Megan, Tina, Andrea, that all of us still experience that, right? It's just part of growth. So in some ways, just accept it, but still step in. Just recognize it, but just step in.
Step in anyway. All right, Tina, 10 seconds or less. Imposter
Do the
syndrome
red
creeping in.
lipstick.
I dig the red lipstick, and I gotta tell you, when I wear red lipstick and I step into a meeting, I've had other women like, "Oh, you look good," and there's nothing better than a woman hyping another woman up. And so I gotta tell you, and you guys mentioned earlier about culture, and that's a culture that we lead in our office. It's not intentional, but we happen to have a team of all women at our Chamber of Commerce. There's six of us, all seven, all of us, all working, including myself, seven all working together, and we support each other, we help each other. When we talk about each other behind our back, it's always pumping each other up of how we're going to celebrate somebody, how we're going to reward and recognize. It is always about bringing that energy and that vibe in a positive manner. And so as we hand it back to Amanda, I want to say thank you all for being here. I want to thank everybody who's online. Thank you for submitting questions. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and ideas. I love that you guys were hype people to the great words that they were sharing. You were embodying that Athena supporting each other. So thank you all for being here today. I appreciate the opportunity to ask you all questions and look forward to connecting with Athena in the future by watching. So Amanda, back to you.
Thanks, Megan. And as we wrap up, I want to thank every attendee for being here and for being engaged. Speaking up with courage is easiest when you have a powerful support system in your corner. By being active in Michigan Athena, you are able to surround yourself with people who are able to encourage you, and you can encourage others. So thank you so much again to our very wise panel, Megan, Deb, Tina, and Andrea. Your stories really guided us today and what it means to have courage and a voice in every situation. A few key takeaways I jotted down were: I have a seat at this table for a reason. I have a unique set of thinking and I should use it. Keep growing and show up. I'm sure each of you as attendees have your own takeaways as well. Thank you so much to our sponsors. 2026 Athena sponsors, Consumers Energy, our diamond sponsor. Thank you so much, Teresa, for being on today and supporting, from Lake Trust, who is our presenting sponsor, and also to Hastings Insurance, Amerisure, waste management. We are so grateful for all of your continued support of Michigan Athena programming and supporting leaders. Okay, everyone, 3 QR codes, very important. I love a good QR code. It gets me to where I need to go quickly. So pull up your phones if you want. QR code number 1. Quick plug for Michigan Athena membership. If you're not already a member of Michigan Athena, it's a very nominal annual fee, and you will get linked in to countless resources. And we really encourage you to take a look at membership if you're not already a member. Thanks for hearting it, friends. We have dozens and dozens of members on today's call. Check it out. Kate in our office with Michigan Chamber, Michigan Athena can also answer any questions for you. She is absolutely wonderful. The link will also be in the post-event email for membership. Secondly, before we officially wrap up, our next Michigan Athena event is in person in Northern Michigan at the Northern Michigan Conference. It's October 7th through 9th at the beautiful Crystal Mountain Resort. And we want to see you there. I have a little inside scoop. If you click on that QR code and register, you can use the promo code EMPOWER100, and that will give you $100 off your registration. So EMPOWER 100, $100 off your registration this week using that code. And we do hope to see you there. For those of you who are really busy, let's just be honest, you might not be able to afford 3 days away. There is a 1 day, the main day attendee option. It's more affordable for budget if that's what you can pull off, and also doesn't keep you away from home and other priorities that you may not be able to sneak away for the full conference. So check it out. And lastly, before you go, we would love to get your feedback on today's experience. If you're like a check it off the list person, feel free to scan this third QR code. It's a very brief survey. Let us know what you think about today. Let us know what you're looking for in the future with Michigan Athena. We love the engagement of these webinars. So with that said, in closing, stay connected, continue to lead with purpose. We hope to see you at the conference in October, and be well.